Hi guys, welcome to the She is Purpose YouTube channel. I cannot believe that I'm saying that I'm officially welcoming you to this little corner of the internet where faith and wellness meet. It's been a long time coming, and I am really, really excited to have you and to start this journey. And I wanted to just kind of I don't know, put together a little bit of a get to know me type of video, sharing my testimony, my journey, and I think also giving you an idea of what you can expect on this channel and on this journey. And yeah, that's basically it, right? So I'm going to be sharing a little bit on how I've neglected her. Now, if you know anything about this ministry and this community, is that at the beginning of the year, we went on a 21-day Becoming Her challenge. And that was just a challenge geared towards really embodying the woman of our dreams and the woman of our purpose by doing the things that align us towards who she is in dreams, in visions, in our relationship with the Lord, in our mindset, being grateful more than complaining. And so it was a really, really amazing challenge. But as you know, with everything in life, you start strong and somewhere along the way, you kind of lose steam. And that's kind of what happened to me, right? But I also want us to go back a little bit. So yes, I've neglected her now, but where did this journey start? And I think this will also give us an understanding and an inside look as to why certain things are important to me, why certain topics are important for me to discuss, why I feel that as women in faith, we need to be having particular conversations and not just leave these topics up to the world and for the world to formulate a voice for us where we just come and we take whatever they say and run with it, because it's not everything that's out there that sounds good, that's true, and that's applicable to us as children of God who live according to the Bible. So I really just feel like it's time that we contributed our voice in these conversations around healing, around trauma, around wellness. What does wellness mean for us as children of God, for us as women who live according to the word of God? What does all of this mean, and what does it look like practically lived out in the day to day? So I neglected her, but let's go back, right? And kind of figure out how I got into this in the first place. I neglected her, and I'm really at a stage where I'm passionate about working on the woman of my dreams and becoming her daily, and becoming less like my past and more like my future daily. But why? Why is it that this is so important to me? And that's because in 2021, I'd say, is when this journey started for me. I was at my most broken and confused and just I was in pieces, man. I was really, really a mess. And I found myself in a corner where I had no choice but to heal because there was nothing I could do with fragments of me. I needed to find a way to bring her back together and have her be whole and have her be human so she can function again, her being me, obviously. And so I started reading. I believe that the Lord led me to a lot of books that made my feelings make sense. They made where I was um, make sense. It kind of gave my experience expression where it wasn't just, I'm just feeling this way, or I'm just in this place, but it was like, I'm feeling this and this is why, or this is what this thing is called, right? This is what this experience is called. And so I went on this journey of reading and really diving into the topic of healing and the mind and traumas. And I mean, I discovered things about myself that I didn't even know existed. And I realized that at the time I was healing from things that I didn't even know were broken or in need of healing. And so that's where this journey began for me. And that's why I really realized that as women of faith, we don't have spaces where these conversations are had. We don't have spaces where we can be comfortable and say, hey, I went through this trauma. Hey, I was in an unhealthy relationship and this is how I got out. I was in an unhealthy relationship and this is how it affected me. I grew up in a not so healthy environment and this is how it contributed to who I am today. We just kind of think that being in the faith, being a daughter of the Lord Jesus Christ means you just take it all in your stride and you never talk about it and you sweep it under under the rug and you keep it moving. But what I've learned is that part of your life's ministry is in those experiences. And if you never explore them, you might never fully discover the journey that you're supposed to go on in order to help other people. You might never discover your life's mission, your life's assignment. And as this is called, your life's purpose, she is purpose. The whole point of us being here is to go on a journey of discovering purpose, how to live in purpose, how to be maintained in that purpose, and how to then have that purpose serve us and fulfill us as well while we serve other people. So I wanted us to just maybe not get into too much detail. We'll probably get into a lot more detail as time goes on, but just when I say I started this journey of healing, what exactly am I talking about? So, and I think this is part of where my testimony kind of begins in this conversation. I am a person who struggled with depression. I struggled with anxiety for a really long time. I struggled with suicidal thoughts for a really long time. And I remember feeling like you're not allowed to have these conversations because if you believe in Jesus, why are you even struggling with these things, you know? And so I kept it to myself for a really long time. I just felt like um, I'm just making it up or nobody's going to understand. And I went through this from around the time, I think when I first realized that something just wasn't right and I wasn't as happy as other children was in high school. Um, I think from primary school, I was bullied in high school, but I never took it seriously. I was the new kid at school, and the kids thought that it was funny that I had a gap and the way that I looked, and so everybody had something to say. And that, I think, already set the tone for my years in my school, right? Because I was there from grade 4 right up until matric. So it kind of set the foundation where I just really felt insecure. I didn't feel welcomed. I felt like I was less than all the other kids. I hated the color of my skin. I was convinced that when I finished school and I moved to Joburg, I was going to bleach my skin because I thought part of the problem was the fact that I was a black girl. And so I hated my face, I hated my teeth, I hated my skin, I hated everything about myself. And I think I kind of grew up with that misery and just feeling like, man, I'm going through this and I don't have anywhere to go, right? Because you kind of feel like you're bothering your parents at times. And at the time, I mean, my mom was a new mom to my younger sister. She was born in September, and we moved to Palabora in Jan. So she was a couple months old. She was still a baby. And my mom was dealing with that, moving into a new town, finding your feet there, and taking care of this baby. And my dad was in a new job. So it was a really big adjustment for us as a family. And I think we do that thing as children where sometimes you want to make your parents' load lighter, so you just don't tell them about certain things. And I know now that that probably wasn't the best thing to do, but that's what I did at the time. I did what I thought was best, and so I kept it to myself, and I grew up with this brokenness. And by the time I got to high school, I would say the misery had expanded, and I was just depressed, right? There was no amount of attention that made it better. There was no amount of achievements that made it better. I really tried to push myself to do really well at school, and I did, but it never really satisfied me. And that's when I realized, well, now looking back, that that's where that need to prove yourself worthy of love and affection and validation came from, where now you feel like you need to perform for love. And that's a topic for another day, but that's kind of the things that kind of came up, that I wasn't satisfied with who I was, and I didn't even realize it. And I was just so depressed. I was so anxious. I was so afraid. And so I was climbing up this ladder of success at school, but there was just something so broken within me, and I didn't even realize it. And around the age of 17, I'd say, was when I first realized that I had suicidal thoughts. I just felt like, let me cut everybody um some slack and let me remove myself from the dynamic. I think life would be easier for everyone if I wasn't a part of the equation. And so I'd think about slitting my wrists quite often. I'd think about stabbing myself quite often. I'd think about, all kinds of just ways of hurting myself. And ending my life eventually, which was the end goal. I didn't just want to harm myself to feel the pain, but I wanted to just harm myself with the end goal of ending it all. And this continued up until I was around the age of 19, and I was in first year. And again, I was really depressed and broken. And um, one thing I'm grateful for is that in the midst of all of that, I really believe that the Lord kept me, because my life could have gone so left. It could have gone all the way left, but it didn't. And um, I got saved when I grew up in the church. I grew up in the church. God was never foreign to me. Church was never foreign to me, but I'd never really given my life to Jesus. I did that when I was around the age of 21, 22. That's when I really devoted myself and said, yes, I give my life to Jesus. And at that point, when that opportunity presented itself to me, I was I had a very unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And that's why I say my life could have gone a whole other way. I could have been met with an accident and died on the spot because I was drinking and I came back driving and drunk. I missed a turn, something, anything could have happened. I could have been taken advantage of at these parties, but that didn't happen. God kept me. And I believe that it's for a reason. And so all of that happened, but it still had so I got saved, but there was still this foundation of brokenness there. And what that did is I ended up in a situation where in 2019, my life absolutely fell apart. And in this falling apart, I mean, I was falling apart as an individual, my family was falling apart, and relationally as well, that wasn't a good space. And I remember I was so tired of that entire episode. By 2020, I thought to myself, you know what? I might revisit that thing again where I just switch off the main switch and call it a day, because I was really tired. And I believe that's where life found me. That's where the true healing journey began. 2020. I always say COVID was not as miserable for me. I had time to sit down, think, figure myself out, and be met by God there. I began living again. I began dreaming again. I didn't realize how many years I had just lived and existed, and I wasn't dreaming. I didn't want to be here and progress and achieve things. I was just okay with waking up every day and just getting through the day. And I know now that that's not what God wanted for me. And so 2020, I thought to myself, look, I'm going to try this again one more time. Mind you, every time before that, I think the 2020 situation was about my third attempt at taking my life. Every time before that, it was unsuccessful, to the point where, some people will do something and they'll end up in the hospital, and then they'll be okay. My body rejected every attempt that I made. And I remember that adding to my brokenness. I thought, man, even death doesn't want me. Like, how horrible of a person must I be that even death rejects me? So if that was my thinking, you can just imagine how broken I was. How worthless I felt, and I wasn't even aware. So 2020 came, I tried again, it didn't work, my body rejected what I had attempted to do, and when I came back from that attempt, I don't know what happened, but man, I really believe that new life was breathed into me. I came back from that attempt and I said to myself, I never want to do this again. I never want to mess with my life again and just kind of gamble with it. I realized I don't really want to die. I just really wanted the pain to stop. And that was the only way I thought I could make it happen. And I realized I want to live and I want to make the best of my life. So I said, we're not playing this game anymore. And glory be to God, I have never been suicidal ever again. It's 2023. This happened 2020. And I have not had suicidal thoughts since. I had a situation where an encounter with someone pushed me to the point where I thought, maybe. But I remember calling myself back so quickly, like, you know what, we've been here, done this, we've had this conversation, and we said we're not doing this. And maybe the fact that this particular person is having a conversation with you or speaking to you in such a way that it's bringing you to a point where you feel like your life is not worth living, maybe you should evaluate the relationship and not discard your life, discard the relationship and not your life. And so that was how this journey started for me. And I became really passionate about healing and encouraging women to heal and encouraging women to find themselves. And I believe that this was another layer of this ministry being birthed. And I really feel like I needed to share that part of my testimony because there's so many women who struggle in silence, especially the one who's known as the strong friend, the strong sibling, the strong daughter. You feel like it's your responsibility to hold everyone up, that your absence of admitting that you're struggling means that everybody else will be okay. But I am here to tell you that that is a lie. And that is the enemy's tactic at isolating you and using you against you. Because the enemy knows that he can't kill us. He knows that he can't do anything to us. And so what he tries to do is he uses us against us. And that's the one thing that I realized about myself, that he knew he couldn't stop Shia's purpose from being. He knew that he couldn't stop the impact that the Lord had placed me on this earth to fulfill from coming to pass. And so he said, I'm going to use you as a weapon against you. I'm going to use you to take yourself out. And that might not look as drastic as literally taking your own life, but that might look like how you speak to yourself, how you think about yourself, how you show up, the decisions you make, how you don't value yourself, and it shows in the decisions you make and who you choose to give your body to, who you choose to give your attention to, the things you choose to take in, the things you choose to listen to. So let the things that you do and the decisions that you make and who you surround yourself with and what you do and what you don't do, the places you go to, let that be a reflection of the health of your mind and your heart. Because if your heart and your mind are not healthy, you become a target for the enemy. And that is what I realized in hindsight when I look back in 2020 and I was like, man, this is what was happening all along. And so 2020, grief came. I lost a really good friend of mine, and I think the pain of that loss was more from a perspective of we had just reconnected, you know? So much had happened, stuff had happened in her life, stuff had happened in my life, and we just weren't as close as we used to be. I mean, we lived in the same street, we lived right across each other, and so we'd go see each other anytime. We were like family. And then life happened, she had to move away. Eventually, I moved away to somewhere else, and things just weren't the same. And just as we found ourselves again, then she was taken. And I think that added to the pain of the loss. She was killed, and there was never any justice for that. And it made it so hard to process that death. I think I could process the death, but just the violence behind it, I just could not understand it. And so 2020 was just an overwhelming year. 2021, sorry, was just an overwhelming year. I was in law school trying to, further my career. And it was overwhelming. Oh my goodness, that course nearly took me out. If anybody studied law and they did PLT, they know that, oh my goodness, it was horrible. My mental health really struggled, and I was dealing with the grief. I mean, I remember it was my friend in March. It was my grandmother in June, July. It was a family friend who was like a mom in December, Jan. And it just felt like I wasn't getting a break. Every time I was like, okay, I'm making it out of the law school pressure. Then it was death, and then there was no death. I was making it out of that, and then there was another death. And then I was like, okay, I'm finally finding my feet. I'm done with law school. I'm processing the last 2 deaths, and then there was another death. And it was so much. And there was death in 2020 as well. So it was a lot of grief that needed to be processed. And I think I just didn't know how to process grief as a child of God. That had never been a topic that I had heard taught. That had never been a conversation I had with anyone. And that's why I keep going back to say there's conversations I feel like we're not having enough. We're not being honest enough about being human, being a child of God, living on this earth and going through this earthly experience as a child of God. And that's why this space exists, right? Where we can have those conversations around wellness influenced by faith. What does wellness and faith, what does that marriage between wellness and faith look like? Anyway, so 2021 happened. It was horrible, but I had to break. And I think that is the point of this testimony, is that I had to break. And you have to break in order for what's on the inside of you to come forth. I'm reminded of the story of the lady who broke her alabaster box in order to pour her perfume on the feet of Jesus. And it was like, in order for that perfume to be accessed, this expensive perfume, the Bible tells us that the disciples were like, why waste this perfume? This could have been used for the poor. And Jesus was like, hold on. She knows what she's doing. She has revelation for what she's doing. And I feel like that's a lot of us, where you need to break in order for what's on the inside of you to come forth, in order for that fragrance, that sweet aroma to come forth. Because at times you think there's the stench of death, right? But because Jesus then says about this woman that this lady is preparing me for my death. And so she poured a fragrant perfume on Jesus, and he says, this is preparing me for my death. So what should have looked like, well, death should smell a certain way, it did not, And so even with us, you might feel like, look, this symbolizes death. But in that symbolism of death, something is coming forth. In order for the best of you to come forward, you need to break. And so that was 2021 for me. I broke. There isn't an area of my life that was not broken in 2021. Everything laid bare, shattered, broken on the floor at the feet of Jesus. And true to his nature, being the potter and me the clay, he has molded me back together. And he's healed me from the childhood traumas. He's healed me from the toxic relationship. He has healed me from, friendships that weren't so healthy either, that really make you question, like, am I good enough to be valued by a friend? He really caused me to have my mind rewired. And that's how I know that Romans 12 is not just a scripture. When he speaks about how we should be renewed in our minds by the Holy Spirit, that's exactly what he did. He caused me to think of myself in a whole new way. And I started valuing myself more. And it showed in the decisions that I made. It showed in the way that I showed up in conversations. It showed in the way that I dressed. It just reflected so much that, you know what? Who I think I am has changed, and it has begun to align more with who he says I am. Because a lot of us grow up with the voices of everybody else influencing how we see ourselves and who we think we are and how we show up, and the careers we choose and the men we choose and the friends we choose. And you just go making decisions thinking it's your voice influencing the decisions that you made, but it's the voice of brokenness, pain, rejection, and just wanting to feel chosen, wanting to feel loved. I just want to create a space that's safe for us to have those conversations, for us to admit when we're broken, for us to carry each other and hold each other up when we're broken, for us to pray with one another when we're broken, and to say, hey, I've been there, you get through this. That is the main thing that I want to achieve with She Is Purpose. It's just creating a community of women who are at different points in their journey, women who are in it, women who've been there, women who are still coming into it, where at every point in your journey, you can find someone to say, hey, this is the help that I can offer you. I've been there. This is how I got through it. I've been there. This is my testimony. If God did it for me, he can do it for you. Hey, I'm in it too. Let's walk this thing together until we get out of it victorious on the other side. Or, hey, you know what? I see that this is the journey that you're going into. Can I offer you some advice so that you can prepare yourself for what you're getting into? I want to build a sisterhood, women that can stand together, who know what the word says and are able to stand side by side with one another as life unfolds. And true to the word of God, the sun does shine again. Joy comes in the morning. And so 2022, I met someone, and it's, I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know what to even say about that. But I met someone in 2022. I didn't see this person coming. I remember I had just said in December, you know what, Lord, I think I've healed. I think I'm good. I think I can meet someone. And March, boom, that was it. And I couldn't believe how quick that was. I was like, man, I wish I could pray for money and that could come that quickly. But I mean, I'll take this. It's incredible. And this relationship has been so beautiful. But it's part of the reason why I neglected her. Because, I feel like, and I remember a couple of weeks ago, he sent me this video of someone talking about being loved into complacency, like where you're just so loved, you're like, yeah, I don't need to do anything. I just want to bask in this, I just want to take this in. But I feel like I've taken it in enough and I'm ready to get back into the swing of things and just working on my life. And I think we've spent enough time together. We've gotten to know each other. We can start like branching out and just, taking our time and putting it towards the other areas of our lives. I think we've really invested a lot of time and effort into building the foundation of our relationship. And I think that was intentional. I think God did it on purpose that way, to have us lay this foundation this way and have us be able to spend all this time together. But it has been such a healthy relationship. And I never thought health could ever be bad for me. And I'm not saying that it has, but I think I'm sharing this part of my journey to say it doesn't always have to be something that's bad, that you need to maybe step back and reevaluate. Because now I know that this is good. I know this love is good for me. I know this attention is good for me. I know this care is good for me. I know that this person is amazing for me. I just need to now know how to steward this good well for myself and not abuse it and not overuse it. And I never thought about it that way before until now. And so, excuse me, guys, if I'm looking everywhere. This is so unfamiliar, but I'll get better at it, okay? So, yeah, I met this person and it's been amazing. And I am in the healthiest relationship I've ever witnessed. It's been such a healing experience, I believe, not just for me, but I've seen how healing it's been even like for my mom and my sister, just to watch. I love how it's influencing and shaping my sister's standards and perceptions on relationships and men, Christian men, godly men. But anyway, because of this relationship, I stopped showing up for her or as her. I think he did so much showing up for me. It didn't even, a lot of the time, and this is what I realized, that you don't need to show up for yourself only when there's a deficit, right? You need to show up for yourself, period. Regardless of who's there or isn't there, you need to make it a habit. You need to make it a lifestyle to show up for you as you. And I don't think I would have learned these things if, life didn't happen the way that it happened. And so this man showed up so much that I didn't feel like I needed to show up for me very much. He filled every gap so completely that it felt like even when I didn't show up, things were okay. And I got used to that, right? That became a habit. That became just, this is how the way things are. And it was okay for a while, but I'm no longer satisfied with that. I think the time, life happens in times and seasons. And so I think the time for me to just chill, lay back, and take in this love and have it heal me, and have it just kind of reprogram my mind, because I even realize how my nervous system has regulated so much. If you are a person that's read up on trauma and healing, you will know how trauma just discombobulates your nervous system, and you're always just so edgy, and you're anxious even when there's no need. And so there were so many things that had brought me to a place where I was constantly on hyper alert. But what this relationship and this man has done is it's brought me to a place where I'm calm. My nervous system knows how to work now. Like, I'm scared when there's reason to be scared. I'm not just scared all the time. And so I know that everything that happened the way that it needed to happen. But I believe that I'm stepping into a season where I need to get back into focusing on her, and I need to get back into paying attention to becoming her. And this brings us to 2023. Like I said, I feel a little bit dissatisfied right now, and that's how I know it's time for another season. And I think that's another thing that I just want to drop in there, that it's important to discern the seasons of your life. Don't do last season's things in this season, right? Because then things don't flow the way that they need to be flowing. And so I feel challenged to just wake up and to start doing things differently, and to revisit certain things, to go back to reading those books and attending those events and listening to those podcasts, and just revisiting the things that kept me on my toes in this journey. Because I've learned that, or rather I forgot, and I'm relearning, that healing is not a destination. It's not a place you arrive at. It is a place that you're constantly journeying to. And I forgot that. And I thought, well, I'm good now. I'm not scared of nothing. I'm okay. But there's another level of me now. There's another part of me that needs my attention, that needs me to focus on healing it. Because I think about it like this. The damage of the trauma happened over such a long period of time. You can't expect that all of that is going to be reversed in a year, and 6 months, and 5 months. So you might be feeling better, but you need to do what you need to do to maintain the health, to maintain the space that you're in, right? And so that's what I want to do. I want to get back to the journey of becoming her, and I want to invite you with me. I want us to chat about it. I want us to talk about faith. I want us to talk about traumas. I want us to talk about relationships. I want us to really be a community that ensuring that we are holistically healthy. I want you to be healthy in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit, in your finances, in your body. And that is what we encourage over here. So much has changed. So much has evolved. And I think I owe her the attention that she deserves. For her to be rediscovered, I need to rediscover who I am in this season with everything that has happened. So I'm not that broken, bruised, confused version of myself anymore. And I discovered her, helped her, healed her by the grace of God. And now I want to know who this girl is and what she needs and what growth and healing and development looks like for her. And I owe her that much. And you owe you that much, because I can't become her if I don't know her. I need to get to know me, this me, in order for me to continue on this journey of becoming her. And so I'm starting over. I'm going back to reading the books, listening to the podcasts, listening to the sermons, going back to my first love. I used to have these dates with Jesus, and they'd be so cute. I want to go back to that. And I just want to highlight that this isn't about going back to things that are just familiar and comfortable, even though they're not good for you or healthy for you. The things that I'm mentioning are things that I know are helpful in equipping me. I get a lot of knowledge from just consuming purposeful content and not just watching TV. I'm into K-drama now, and I watch a lot of Korean series, but I want to dial down a bit on that, where if I'm watching television, I'm listening to the radio. I'm either, listening to music that's edifying, listening to a sermon that's edifying, a podcast that's edifying, just feeding myself with information that's going to help me grow and become better and become her. So I'm going back to that place. I'm revisiting her. Not just, how we think of visitors as people that come and go, but just like going back to her. Yeah, just revisiting me, revisiting my dreams. So this is me starting over, getting back to me, because I'm learning that it's okay to start over. And I wanted to give you the same permission. You can start over. We're in May. The year's not too far gone. you can start over as many times as you need to until you get it right.